Good day, everyone. Welcome to the Pilipinas Rotaract online university course on project planning and development. My name is Louis Darial. I'm a Rotaractor, a Rotarian, and a project management professional. As someone who have been in the field of social development and project management for 8 years already, it is my pleasure to share with you some of the knowledge that I have gained through experience and formal training as a way of helping you further enhance the way you develop and conduct your Rotaract Club service programs. For this course, we will focus on projects in the context of social development. Projects are also used in other realms such as IT, business, and marketing, so it's important that we set our mindset towards social development. We will begin this session with a discussion of the definition of a project and its unique features. How can we say that a certain set of activities is indeed considered a project? Second, we will relate how a project contributes in sustainable development. Third, we will talk about the elements of a project design, which will help you understand how a project works towards achieving your desired objective. Fourth, we will talk about the project life cycle. This will give you an understanding of the important phases of project management. Fifth, we will also discuss how beneficiaries and other groups in the community can make or break a project. Sixth, I will share with you some of the project identification and design tools being used in the social development or humanitarian industry and hope that you give this a try as you plan your projects for the next term. Lastly, I will walk you through on how to write a project proposal, which is an essential reference guide for clubs whenever you are managing a project throughout its completion. I hope you are all excited to learn, so let's begin this course. Projects are what keep our clubs going. It is our primary vehicle in doing our share towards addressing some of the pressing challenges in our local communities. It is through projects where we provide opportunities to engage existing members, attract new ones, and gain potential partners. It is also through a project where we grow our leadership and professional skills, and at the same time meet new people and make friends locally or around the world. What is a project, by the way? Well, project in social development context is designed to be a package of investments, policy measures, institutional actions, and other interventions designed to achieve a specific development objective within a designated period for a specific group of beneficiaries. I want you to focus on the highlighted phrases in the slide as these are the unique characteristics of a project. An activity cannot be considered a project with the absence of at least one of these four characteristics. Let's talk about them in detail. Development projects are considered to be social investment packages. First, projects are considered to be investment activities because they require provision of certain resources to create social assets. These social assets produce returns or benefits over an extended period of time. Let's take the example of scholarship as a project. We provide financial educational assistance to students so that they will be able to gain good quality of education and obtain a diploma, a social asset. This education and diploma they will use in order to have better access to good career opportunities in the future. With good career opportunities, they will be able to help uplift the quality of their lives and that of their families. Projects are considered to be investment packages because they do not only require physical and financial resources in order to succeed. They also require interventions such as laws or policies from government institutions to ensure that the results of the project will be sustained. We have already established that projects play a crucial role in driving local and national development. We should, however, be reminded that development nowadays should not only talk about economic progress. In the advent of the new century, we have realized that profit interest must also be balanced with general social development and preservation of natural resources, some of which are considered to be non-renewable. Hence the birth of the concept of sustainable development. Sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. This may be further characterized by the need to balance the development objectives of economic growth, environmental protection, and social inclusion. These elements are interconnected and crucial to be harmonized in order to achieve genuine sustainable development. The three Sustainable Development Objectives are also known as the People, Planet, and Profit Objectives, or the triple bottom line of sustainability. Hence, when we talk about specific development objectives for our projects, it may either be an economic objective, which helps drive economic growth, efficiency, or stability of local economies, environmental objective, which addresses rational use and conservation of natural resources, or social objective, which targets equity, security, education, health, participation, or preservation of cultural identity of people. You may be aware of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. These goals are actually anchored on the three objectives of sustainable development. As we have highlighted earlier, the three objectives must be harmonized. The UN Sustainable Development Goals also recognize that action in one area will affect outcomes in others, and that development must balance social, economic, and environmental objectives. If you want to learn more about sustainable development and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, kindly watch the supplementary videos uploaded in this e-learning course.
Hi guys! Do you have time for a few quick questions? I see you're having a lot of fun, but do you ever stop and think if what you do is sustainable? And do you know what sustainable development means? Sustainable development is to make the world a better place for everyone now without destroying the possibilities for the next generations. If you wonder if something is sustainable, you can ask yourself, can we do this over and over again forever? Sustainable development means that we need to keep three things in mind at once: social progress, economic development, and climate and environment. First of all, we have to take care of our planet. We have many natural ecosystems that must be in balance in order for us to live here. The climate system is one of them. This system ensures that the temperature is correct and that the atmosphere emits exactly the right amount of solar energy. When we emit harmful greenhouse gases such as CO2, we clog the atmosphere. This changes the temperatures on Earth, which again affects our development. How we produce and use energy is incredibly important. Oil and coal are examples of energy we may run out of. Water, wind, and sun, however, will always be here. Using the lasting sources of energy that renew themselves is good for the planet and can provide jobs for years to come. Economics. Almost everything we develop, buy, and trade starts with nature. The smarter we use our natural resources and the better systems we create for a fair distribution, the more sustainable we are. One way to contribute to a more uneven distribution is to be more aware of what we buy and how it is produced. A football is a good example. It travels far before it reaches the football players. First, the materials are made. Then, they print the logo somewhere else before a third country sews it all together. One single football sees the whole world before it reaches its goal. This journey ties us together. If we are to win the battle for a sustainable future, we have to play with fair rules that applies to everyone. Social progress. We humans are part of nature, but we're also important resources for the world. Just like water, the forest, and the sun, we have minds that can create the strangest and most creative things. But for us to be the best versions of ourselves, there are certain things that must be in order, like having equal opportunities to education, safety, food, and medicine. This provides greater opportunities for us as human beings, but also for the planet. We just have to think in new ways. These three must work together. That is sustainable development. And there is actually a plan for this. All the countries of the United Nations have agreed on a joint plan for sustainable development. But for the plan to work, we need to cooperate, and we need you to be on board. Are you with us?
Did you know that the UN Sustainable Development Goals are a universal call to action that unites 193 countries around the world? If these global goals are fulfilled by 2030, life on Earth will be better for everyone. So, what are these goals? Eliminate poverty in all its forms. No hunger. Everyone should have safe, nutritious, and sufficient food. Everyone has equal access to healthcare, thus ensuring our well-being and a healthy life. Equal access to a quality education. Ensure gender equality where women and girls have the same opportunities as men and boys. By achieving these goals, each member of our society will be equal, safe, and happy. UN global goals also include access to safe drinking water and sanitation, access to clean energy that is safe for people and the environment, sustainable and stable economic growth. Everyone has a decent job, strong infrastructure, and the support of innovations. Lower inequality within and among countries. Cities and settlements be developed without damaging the environment and people. Achieving these goals will result in the well-being of people and our planet. We can further take care of our environment with the following goals: sustainable and safe production and consumption of products. Take urgent measures to reduce climate change and its impact. Ensure the sustainable use and protection of ocean and sea resources. Restore and protect Earth's ecosystems. By achieving these goals, we will form a society where strong institutions ensure peace and justice. It is important for everyone to be involved and to build partnerships for achieving sustainable development goals. You are part of this process. Demand the implementation of these goals. Take the lead and share information with your friends.
As you have already emphasized, a project has to have a specific objective, purpose, or outcome that it has to achieve upon project completion. This is used as the standard to measure project success. Let's take, for example, a project that gears towards improving the nutritional status of children. The equivalent measure of success will be the reduction of the number of wasted or severely wasted pupils. When we talk about a project that gears toward improving better learning outcomes, probably an education project, this might be measured by the improvement of the performance of the school in the National Achievement Test. When we talk about a project on safe childbirth or maternal and child health project, the measure of success would be the reduction of maternal mortality. Lastly, when we talk about a project on livelihood, the equivalent measure would be the increase in income of the targeted beneficiaries. Hence, no project must be done without a specific development objective identified at the start. Similar to romantic relationships, if you're unclear of your intentions, better yet don't enter a relationship. Having no measure of success means the relationship is already doomed to fail.
Pero di ko kaya bumitaw, ika'y masasaktan dahil pangako ko'y walang iwanan. Alam kong huli na, alam kong hindi na nga maaari.
To better understand how a project works, one must be aware of the 5 strategic elements of a project design. It explains a means-ends relationship or a results chain. The first element is the inputs. Inputs refer to financial, human, technical, community, and local resources needed for the project. Imagine we're doing a feeding program. The inputs for the feeding program would definitely be the budget, ingredients, manpower, and the kitchen. These inputs will be processed through the activities, the second element. These are necessary actions or steps that are conducted using the available resources to produce the outputs. Activities may come in the form of processes, events, trainings, or meetings. For the case of feeding program, this might be the meals preparation, actual feeding activity, and the measurement of the body mass index. Activities will produce outputs or the physical or tangible goods and or services that are completed after the project. In the case of the feeding program, the output will be the number of students fed. Outputs result to an outcome, the immediate positive change in the situation or behaviors of target beneficiaries. Outcome is the development objective, the specific effect of the project that it aims to achieve after it has been completed. There should only be one outcome for a project, since a project responds to a specific core problem. Having more than one project outcome complicates project implementation. For the case of feeding program, this might be the percentage decrease in the wasted or severely wasted students. As highlighted, this is the specific development objective, the reason why your project came to be. Outcome also results to impact. Impact clarifies why the project is important to society in general. Impact is defined as the long-term benefits to beneficiaries or the widespread improvement in the community. Impact is generally wide in scope. It may relate to a sector where your target beneficiary is just a part of, or even the whole nation. It is realized in the medium to long term, and it takes several months or years after the project has been completed before you realize the impact. It's also influenced by other factors other than the project. Because of its nature, impact is not expected to be attained by the project alone, but rather, the project is only expected to contribute to its achievement since it is only one of the many preconditions that are required to attain it. For the case of the feeding program, good nutritional status for children may impact their participation in class, measured by the 100% attendance or the improvement in the NAT rating of the school. In summary, if inputs are used for activities, that will produce outputs, which would lead to outcomes that will ultimately contribute to impact. You may know further the difference between input, activity, output, outcome, and impact by watching the supplementary video uploaded in this e-learning course.
In this video, we will talk about an easy way to tell the difference between an input, activity, output, outcome, and impact. A fun way to visualize these concepts is to imagine someone walking on a beach. He sees a bed of rocks and thinks it would be a good idea to throw rocks in the water. The rocks represent the financial, human, physical, and material resources that are available to the organization. These are the inputs that would be fed into a given program or project. He makes the decision to throw a rock in the sea. The act of throwing the rock represents the activities of a program. Once the rock hits the water, they make splashes. The splash is the immediate effect of the activity of throwing the rock. In other words, the splash represents the outputs and is the immediate result of the completion of program activities. Outputs are the products and/or services which results from the completion of activities. The initial splashes, which are the outputs, create a ripple effect on the water. The ripples represent outcomes. Outcomes are the short-term and medium-term effects of the outputs. In other words, what changes occur due to the output. Lastly, the horizon represents the long-term goals, impact, objective, or the lasting changes that we hope to achieve by the program's intervention. It is the result of all the activities, outputs, and outcomes that achieves the goal. So, to summarize, inputs are the financial, human, technical, community, and local resources. Activities are what is done with the inputs, that is, the actions, processes, events, tools, meetings, and trainings. Outputs are the tangible products of the program activities. They are the deliverables, such as policy papers drafted and schools built. Outcomes are what the project expects to accomplish at the beneficiary level. It is the intended or achieved short-term and medium-term effects of an intervention's outputs. Goal or impact is the highest end result. This is the change expected over the long term. In the logical framework, the different steps are ordered sequentially. Activities feed into outputs, which lead to outcomes, which achieve the overall goals. To give a practical example, in a sexual reproductive health program, The human and financial resources are committed to carry out trainings and marketing campaigns on sexual reproductive health that will lead to increased knowledge in this area. This will result in people practicing safer sex, which will lead to a healthier population with reduced HIV/AIDS and STD rates. This is an overly simple example, but it does illustrate the point well. Hope you now have a clearer understanding of the basic monitoring and evaluation concepts. Thanks for watching.
A project is temporary in such a way that it has a specific start and a definite end. It is necessary for projects to end in order to assess its impact. The highest measure of success is when a project is no longer needed because it has already achieved its desired objective. This underscores the importance of setting very well-thought specific project objectives. In the previous slide, we talked about the 5 elements of a project design. Each element has specific timeline of implementation or measurement in the project life. For the case of inputs, activities, and outputs, these are realized during project implementation. Outcome should be apparent immediately after project completion, while impact takes months and years to realize. You may notice the term monitoring in green and evaluation in red, which some of you may have already heard of, but some may have been still uncertain as to their difference and importance in project management. For now, take note that monitoring happens simultaneously with implementation, while evaluation happens after project completion. Evaluation highlights the need for project proponents to go back to their beneficiaries in order to check if the impact has indeed been realized. Unfortunately, project evaluation has rarely been conducted by project proponents. But I want to emphasize that it has to be done in order for you to gauge if your project has indeed been successful. Regardless of how many projects that we do, but if we don't do an effort to go back, we wouldn't know if our multiple efforts have indeed resulted to genuine impact. Hence, strive to go back to your beneficiaries. For Filipino Rotaractors, kidding aside, sana all project para binabalikan. We have already talked about the need for our project to have a specific end. It doesn't mean though that we will no longer be concerned with the results of the project to our beneficiaries once the project has already been completed. As highlighted earlier, project outcomes shall contribute to an impact which takes months or years after the project before it will be realized. The impact will not be realized if the effects of the project will not be sustained after its completion. Hence, calls for the need for all our projects to be sustainable. Sustainability of projects means continuity of benefits after project completion and the likelihood that institutional and financial resources of our project beneficiaries or their partners will sustain the continued benefits of the project over its project life. Let's go back to the example of feeding program. Some ways to ensure sustainability of the project is leaving a renewable resource such as a vegetable garden in the school where teachers and students can continuously cultivate so they will have sustained supply of ingredients for the feeding program. One of the ways to ensure sustainability is to also obtain the buy-in of the local government unit to provide funding support for the feeding program once the project has been completed. Overall, the sustainability component of the project has to be laid out already in the design prior to commencing the project. Now that we have understood the strategic elements of project design, we shall now discuss how a project actually operates. Project development is said to be cyclical or following a cycle. Project development is cyclical because each phase provides inputs into the subsequent stages or phases of a project. The project phases include identification, development, review and approval, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. Once a project is completed, successfully implemented ones can be expected to lead to another project. Learnings from previous projects can also provide feedback to project managers to inform them of strong and weak points which can help improve the identification, design, and implementation of subsequent similar projects. Let's talk in detail about the project phases. Project identification stage requires the analysis of the existing problems in communities and validating these with the development priorities of the same community. Projects may be identified by looking at the development plans of the local government units or communities. Projects may also be proposed by communities or people's group through the conduct of community assessment meetings, or it may be appearing as an urgent need of a group of beneficiaries based on statistics or research. Whatever is the method that you will undertake in order to identify the project, you shall make sure that proper due diligence was conducted in order to thoroughly identify that this is really the problem that the community feels that they want to be addressed. Remember that a problem well identified is a problem half solved. We will have in-depth discussion of project identification tools in the latter part of this e-learning course. Once we have identified the core development problem that the project will attempt to address, we may now proceed to the development of the project idea. The development of project idea involves building its project design elements, namely inputs, activities, outputs, outcome and impact, identifying the risks or assumptions, outlining the activity timeline of the project, and specifying the financial considerations needed to undertake the project. These items are usually captured in a project proposal, which we will also discuss in detail at the latter part of this course. Once the project proposal has already been prepared, it will now be subjected to project review and approval. This phase entails the testing of the viability of the project. Not all projects, even if having good design, will be feasible when implemented based on the actual situation of the community. This is the reason why thorough project review must be done. At the Rotaract Club setting, project review usually happens at the board of directors level, who also conducts the approval of the project proposals. When conducting project review, there are various factors that are being looked at. It may be technical appraisal or review, which looks at the soundness of the project's design in terms of physical skill, location, standards, and technology to be used. It may also be a market appraisal or review, which examines the viability of the market for the project's outputs. Let's say if the project is relating to sale of a product or generating livelihood. It may also look at institutional or organizational appraisal, which examines the entirety of the executing beneficiary organization, such as its management, structure, staffing, policies, procedures, and previous experience. Probably if the project entails certain set of activities to be done by our beneficiaries, we shall probably look if they have the manpower capacity to conduct the activities of the project. Socio-cultural appraisal or review examines the acceptability of the proposed project intervention in the community. This is highly critical when we're doing projects for beneficiaries that are highly culturally sensitive, such as members of indigenous people groups. Once the project passes the litmus test of project review and approval, it can now be implemented. So during the implementation phase, project activities are performed. Project implementation is necessary to be done with a detailed project work plan, which is somehow the contents of a project proposal. The project proponent coordinates with the project suppliers, contractors, project stakeholders, and other partners. And as the project nears completion, a sustainability plan should already be in place. As we have highlighted in our discussion about project sustainability, the sustainability component of the project should have already been identified during the project design phase. The sustainability plan should identify the activities to be phased out, as well as the entity or organization that would be responsible for the project operations after project completion and throughout the duration of its economic life. Economic life is the 1 to 2 years where impact is expected to be realized. At the end of the project implementation, a project completion report is usually prepared. In the Rotaract Club setting, we usually have templates for project reports, which are being submitted monthly basis and being reviewed during mid-year and year-end reviews. This report contains all the project accomplishments, including outputs of activities, positive and negative externalities, and project outcomes. A well-designed and reviewed project is useless unless it is executed well. Hence the importance that the project team really follows what has been outlined in the project proposal. No matter how competent the project managers are and how well set up the project team is, all projects still encounter implementation problems. To avoid these implementation issues, monitoring of the project's progress throughout the implementation phase and conduct of project reviews are critical. This is done to ensure that budgets are well aligned with the project activities and outputs, and projects are on target with their implementation and development objectives. So to define, monitoring involves assessing the progress of physical and financial elements versus planned targets. As we have been emphasizing, the project cycle should continue to the evaluation stage where the impacts of the project outputs and outcomes are evaluated. The reason for waiting for a period time between project completion and evaluation is that impacts really take time to take full effect after physical project completion. Most of the time, evaluation is overlooked, especially since it is undertaken several years after project inception and completion. Most project implementers move on identifying and preparing for succeeding projects, taking an attitude of letting bygones be bygones instead of recognizing the value of looking at the past and learning from experience while moving forward. So to summarize, project management does not only end in implementation. We should definitely ensure that project management continues up to monitoring and evaluation, so we will be fed with the learnings of our project implementation as we develop further projects or plan to conduct similar projects in other areas. Projects are designed to benefit specific group of beneficiaries. A project should have a specific set of stakeholders. Stakeholders are persons or institutions that may be directly or indirectly affected by a development intervention either positively or negatively, now and in the future. From the definition, we can divide the stakeholders into two groups. Primary stakeholders are individuals and groups who are directly affected by the activity, either as the beneficiaries or those who are positively impacted, or the disbeneficiaries who are negatively impacted by the project. Primary stakeholders also include those who can significantly influence or are important to the success of an activity. Secondary stakeholders, meanwhile, are other individuals or institutions with a stake, interest, or intermediary role in the activity. Most of the time, these are the media, government institutions who may have jurisdiction over the area where your beneficiaries are located. What is the important role of stakeholders in the project management? Let's take the question, who identifies a development problem? Some of us assume that since we are the project proponents, it's us who actually identifies the development problem. But to tell you honestly, the identification of a development problem should actually be coming from the beneficiaries themselves. Individuals perceive problems differently, and consequently, different groups of people view problems in different ways. We, as project managers, are usually outsiders on the perspective of the community. So our understanding of the problem may not be the same with how they understand this problem that we treat as a problem. Different interpretation of a problem would require different set of solutions. Thus, we conduct systematic problem analysis in order to ensure that we are actually addressing a specific and valuable development challenge. Project identification then requires a broad consensus among all stakeholders that this given situation is problematic and needs to be rectified through a project intervention. That's the reason why stakeholder analysis is an important component of project management. Let's now talk about the available project identification tools that you can probably explore as you identify your Rotaract Lab projects. Most common one is the problem tree or the root cause analysis.
Tree analysis. This is a group activity that involves input from project team members, stakeholders, and beneficiaries who can contribute relevant technical and local knowledge. The first activity involves defining the main problem that all team members mutually agree upon and visualize it on a flip chart or a whiteboard as the trunk of a tree. Next, through many rounds of dialogues and discussions, the team identifies the causes of the problem and visualizes them as the roots of the tree. Finally, the team brainstorms on the potential consequences of the problem and exhibits them as the branches of the tree. Team members can also add additional branches for solutions, concerns, and decisions. This is an effective practice as it maps out a realistic picture of a problem from economic, political, and socio-cultural dimensions, while building a shared sense of purpose, action, and understanding amongst the involved parties.
In identifying the causes of a problem, it should follow what we call the why technique. When you identify a cause, let's say cause number 1, identify the further cause of cause number 1 resulting to cause 1.1 and cause 1.2 until such time that you reach the bottom line of the roots and there's no further cause that can be identified. Let's imagine this using the feeding program or the malnutrition as a sample. So let's say the malnutrition is the core development problem. We have identified two major causes of malnutrition for children. Number 1 is underlying disease, or number 2, it may be caused by low consumption of diverse nutritious food. Now, if we look at the low consumption of diverse nutritious food, it might be probably caused by two factors. Parents or the students themselves may have no information about nutritious food, or they have information but they lack the access to nutritious food. If we move up to the consequences, malnutrition may result to poor performance of students at school brought about by low energy, resulting to low participation or attendance in class, and poor performance will result to reduced opportunities in the future, especially if the student will drop out from class and eventually do not gain a diploma. Hungry children may also result to risky behavior in order to have access to nutritious food. So as you can see, we highlighted for 5 items in the example. These 5 items is actually what we refer as the solutions tree. So the problem tree is usually converted into an objectives tree where you transfer the negative situations into ideal positive situations. A solutions tree is then outlined where you select a group of objectives, causes and effects, where your current resources or development needs are more effective to be concentrated. Another most common tool in project designing is the logical framework or log frame.
We need to talk about log frames. First off, what are they? The simple answer: log frames answer a series of basic questions that define a project. Humanitarians use them during the design and proposal writing stage of a project, alongside the budget, proposal narrative, and activity schedule. It's like a map into the future of your project, enabling you to stay on track and make minor adjustments if you notice any disruptions up ahead. Here's a log frame. Now, let's look at filling it in by asking, what do we want to achieve? This establishes your goals and objectives. Answering this question provides the project description. You must be clear about the positive impact that your project will have at the community level. Next, how will we achieve this? Meaning the outputs and activities necessary to achieve your stated goal. How will we know when it's achieved? These are your indicators. Indicators show how your achievements will be measured. They are a change or improvement for which you can show proof. Here you need to avoid being vague and give actual quantitative or qualitative values to these indicators. Let's look at an example where our goal is targeted children and families have access to and use safe water and sanitation and adopt improved hygiene practices. An activity could be to construct 200 latrines. An output could be hygiene kits to 1,000 households and support of hygiene promotion activities. And an outcome may be improved health of 5,000 families through increased access to safe water and sanitation and improved hygiene practices. Remember, indicators should always be SMART. Also note that our goal doesn't normally have its own indicators, since all other indicators in the log frame are already contributing to the overall goal. So, what will show us that we've achieved it? These are your sources of verification. This is where you will state how you will confirm your success, the proof you've done what you set out to do. For example, you might verify your successful outcomes with an initial and a final knowledge, attitudes and practices survey, including questionnaires, focus groups, and direct observations. Finally, what are the potential problems along the way? Answering this question provides your risks and assumptions. There are two types of risks and assumptions. Firstly, assumptions about the structure of the project, which occur during the planning stage. For example, construction materials are available locally, or willing and suitable volunteers are available for community work. The second type are environmental assumptions about the project environment as a whole. For example, no additional crises worsen the situation and conditions remain safe to carry out activities. When listing your assumptions, you should distinguish between minor and critical assumptions, and don't list every eventuality. Your log frame should guide you through your project, not send you in all possible directions. Focus on the big stuff. A completed log frame becomes an essential project implementation and management tool. By referring back to your log frame regularly, you can monitor progress and spot any potential issues before they arise. So, by asking a few simple questions, you can quickly build a tool to ensure your project is a success.
Let's take as a sample our feeding program. So, one of the risks in the feeding program in terms of the activities is that the meals prepared may involve ingredients that do not provide the nutritional value. For the output, we target let's say 50 students fed after the feeding program, and the measurement way is the attendance log. One way where we cannot achieve this target output is where we encounter the absenteeism of beneficiary students. In terms of outcome, our target is to ensure the decrease of the wasted and severely wasted students, and we will be able to verify this through a weekly log of the measurement of their body weight. One of the risks that could affect our achievement of the outcome is that nutritional food may not be served at home. So, these sample risks of nutritional food not served at home and absenteeism of beneficiary students and ingredients not providing nutritional value will then help guide our designing process of a project so that we will be able to include treatment strategies to ensure that these risks will not happen as we implement the project. For the nutritional food not served at home, we may include education of the parents of what nutritional food that is readily affordable that they can prepare at home so that we will achieve the optimum outcome identified by the project. In terms of impact or the long-term or widespread effect of the project, where we identified 100% attendance or improvement in NAT rating, our means of verification will be the school attendance record and the NAT record. Overall, this log frame will highlight to us how we are going to improve our project and how are we going to measure its success when we implement. Design thinking is another tool that is being used mostly nowadays by businesses and social enterprises who would want to think of enterprise solutions to social problems.
Suppose you are a part of a thriving business and need to branch out and find that next big thing. Or say you want to change a behavior, like getting people, a lot of people, to use less energy in their homes. How would you go about it? Design thinking is a powerful tool to tackle the unknown. It's a means of going on an expedition without a map, without even knowing the destination, but with the confidence that you'll end up somewhere great. Let's make it tangible with an example that captures the 5 key elements of design thinking. Daylight was given the challenge of getting kids in America to move more to help fight childhood obesity. The project started with an idea. Provide kids with a digital music player that has a motion sensor, then give them rewards based on their activity. But the big question was, would kids really use it? What could make the experience so compelling that they would use it long enough to see the health benefits? Learn from people. We began by talking with kids. We spent time in their homes and schools across the country. We listened to them share their motivations, habits, delights, and frustrations. The research included kids in the mainstream, but also incredibly active kids and the very sedentary. It turns out that those at the extremes are really good at giving a voice to problems that those in the middle might feel, but have a harder time putting their finger on. Find patterns. We captured our observations on hundreds of Post-it notes and laid them all out to make sense of what we learned. Using informed intuition, we looked for patterns that pointed to opportunities. Daniel said, "I get bored with solo video games. It's the multiplayer ones that keep me coming back." Meg said, "I don't listen to music while I'm running because I want to talk to people." Define design principles. These quotes, along with others, revealed one of the design principles that would help us get to a successful concept. Facilitate social interaction at all times. Many such design principles emerged. Together, they formed the guideposts of an experience that we felt confident would resonate with kids. Make tangible. We asked ourselves, how might we questions, to bridge the gap from design principles to specific ideas, and then quickly turn the best of them into rough prototypes. Iterate relentlessly. Building physical devices out of simple cardboard and mocking up digital experiences with paper and pencil allowed us to learn quickly. With each prototype, we tweaked and evolved the concept. We brought digital and physical models to kids to listen and learn. The concept evolved until we got to a compelling solution. What we ended up with was a new product category. Before Fitbit and Apple Watch, we developed an activity tracker that gave kids a portal to an online world where they could share and celebrate their real-world accomplishments with each other and their families. In a 6-month clinical trial, The impact was a 59% increase in physical activity. Learn from people. Find patterns. Define design principles. Make tangible. Iterate relentlessly. Whatever the challenge, design thinking is a powerful tool to reveal new ways of thinking and doing.
A unique feature of this tool is that it follows a non-linear 5-step process of empathizing, defining, ideating, prototyping, and testing. Some of these steps may happen several times, and you may even jump back and forth between them. Moving through these phases of design thinking can take you from a blank slate to a new and innovative solution to a social problem. Once you have already refined your project idea, it is now time to make a project plan, which will be captured in detail by a project proposal. A project proposal is a document that summarizes how the project came to be and how it will be managed to achieve its desired objective. The following are the most basic parts of a project proposal: project identifying information, executive summary, project rationale, project description, key performance indicators or KPIs, and the financial consideration or budget. Let's talk about these parts in detail. The first section of the project proposal is the identifying information. It summarizes the key facts about your project. Members of the project management team and other stakeholders should be able to understand what the project is all about by just looking at this section. On the perspective of a Rotaract Club project, it may contain the project title, the project site or location, the number of target direct beneficiaries, implementation date or dates, classification in the avenues of service, classification in the areas of focus, aligned sustainable development goal, project head, project partners, and overall project cost. The second part of a project proposal is the executive summary. It supports the key facts outlined in the identifying information. It summarizes the entire project and what it aims to achieve in bullets. Let's go back to the example of a feeding program. The executive summary may state that this project involves the conduct of a school-based feeding program spanning 120 days, targeting to convert 50 wasted and severely wasted pupils of school ABC to normal nutritional status pupils. We may also add that the Rotaract Club will target to establish a vegetable garden in the school campus to become the source of ingredients and tap the Rotary Community Corps of its sponsor Rotary Club to handle the daily preparation of nutritional meals to beneficiary pupils. What is important to be highlighted in the executive summary is that it gives someone an understanding of what the project tries to achieve by just reading these few bullets. The third part of a project proposal is the project rationale. It states the development problem that your project is trying to provide a solution. It discusses the situational and problem analysis that your club has undertaken in order to identify the core development problem. It also tells the reason why the project came to be and highlights who the major stakeholders are, how they perceive the problem, and how they are being affected by it. Going back to the example of the feeding program, the project rationale may state that the school ABC has the highest dropout rate and failure rate among public schools in EFGCT, and based on the house-to-house visit conducted by the teachers, the main reason why students are dropping out because they have no lunch money going to school and end up feeling unwell to participate in class. Digging deeper into the problem, you have found out that ABC School has a budget for a feeding program, but it can only serve 50 of the 100 pupils identified to be eligible for the program. It also lacks the manpower to manage a feeding program. However, you found an opportunity in the school that it has a vacant fertile lot where you can probably establish a resource for the feeding program. The fourth part of a project proposal is the project description. It discusses the project design and implementation scheme, based on the strategic elements of inputs, activities, and outputs. It tells about how you're going to mobilize your project resources, what activities will be undertaken in their timeline, what innovative strategies or approaches did you employ in the project, what are the risks and assumptions you have identified and the corresponding treatments, and how you're going to communicate the project to your stakeholders. It also outlines the project partners and their counterpart responsibilities. The fifth part of a project proposal is the key performance indicators. Key performance indicators are the specific, tangible, quantifiable measures or qualitative specifications of project success. As we have highlighted earlier, the output, outcome, and impact objectives of the project should be matched with a key performance indicator which shall tell us if our project has been successful in achieving its desired objective. Going back to the sample of feeding program, the output indicator will be the number of students fed, and as the immediate effect of the output, which is the outcome, the students will be converted to normal nutritional status after 120 days. The impact or the long-term widespread effect of the project is the increase in school attendance and completion rate of students for school year 2019-2020. When identifying indicators, we should keep in mind that this should be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound measures. It is also important that we set the target quantity or level that has to be achieved by the project. So the target, as reflected in the indicator, should be the numerical value. Prior to project implementation, we should also measure the baseline or the beneficiary situation or condition before our intervention. This baseline will be compared against the end line or the beneficiary situation or condition after our project has been implemented. Having a baseline will give us an idea if our project indeed made a significant progress to addressing a certain community problem or influencing a change in the condition or behavior of our target beneficiaries. The last part of a project proposal is the project budget, or the breakdown of club expected costs and the monetary equivalent of counterpart resources from partners. We shall strive to list down, quantify, and monetize the financial, labor, and material resources needed to implement the project. So that ends our discussion on project planning and development concepts and tools. Before we end this course, let us have a recap of the things we have discussed. First, a project is defined as a package of investments, policy measures, institutional actions, and other interventions designed to achieve a specific development objective within a designated period for a specific group of beneficiaries. Second, project design elements include inputs, activities, outputs, outcome, and impact, which form a results chain or a means to ends relationship. Third, we highlighted the need to thoroughly identify the core development problem in the community that our project is trying to address. A problem well identified is a project how to solve. Fourth, the buy-in of the stakeholders or the people who are directly or indirectly benefited by an intervention must be obtained to ensure success of the project. Fifth, projects must be sustainable, and we as project managers should ensure that the results of the project will persist even after project completion. Lastly, project proposals must be prepared and approved prior to project implementation, which will serve as a reference in implementing, monitoring, and evaluating the project. Overall, I hope that I was able to impart fresh ideas, and I hope that some of these you will be able to apply in your upcoming projects. On behalf of the Pilipinas Rotaract MDIO, I thank you for supporting the Pilipinas Rotaract Online University, and I look forward to be working with you as we drive to bring the organization to greater heights.